The rain hadn't stopped for hours. New York City, with all its lights and noise, had turned into a cold, wet blur as the evening wore on. Cars passed, indifferent to the girl sitting alone at the edge of the bus stop bench. Soaked to the bone, her clothes clung to her like a second skin, her hair matted against her cheeks. She had been there for what felt like an eternity, clutching a worn-out backpack to her chest like it held her entire world. Across the street, inside a cozy but modest coffee shop, 26-year-old Lucas Avery finished wiping down the counter. He wasn't supposed to be working the night shift, he was the assistant manager and usually left by 5, but when his coworker called out sick, he stayed. Lucas had always been that kind of guy, dependable, quietly generous, never one to seek the spotlight. The coffee shop was nearly empty now, save for a few late-night stragglers and a mother trying to calm her toddler in the corner. Through the steamy glass, Lucas saw her. The girl at the bench. She hadn't moved in nearly 2 hours. Something about the way she curled into herself, her small frame shaking, caught his attention. On impulse, he grabbed an umbrella and stepped out into the storm. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "You okay?" She flinched but didn't look up. Her voice was a whisper, barely audible over the rain. "I have nowhere to sleep." Lucas hesitated. He had heard enough stories, warnings, and advice to know not to get too involved. But something in her voice, in the way she said it, not with anger or desperation, just quiet resignation, made him pause. "Come inside," he offered gently. "You look frozen. At least get warm." She looked up then, and he saw her eyes, wide, hollow, and exhausted. She couldn't have been older than 20. Wordlessly, she followed him inside. Lucas handed her a towel and a hot cup of cocoa. She took it like someone who hadn't felt warmth in days. They didn't speak much, but the silence between them felt oddly comfortable. She sat at a corner table, gently thawing, watching the raindrops race each other down the window. When the shop closed an hour later, Lucas was faced with a decision. He couldn't leave her out in the storm. "Not like that. I live a few blocks from here," he said carefully. "It's small. Just one room. You can stay the night. Take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor." She looked at him, startled. "Why would you do that?" "Because," he shrugged, "someone once did it for me." Back at his apartment, Lucas handed her some dry clothes. She changed in the bathroom and came out wearing his oversized hoodie and sweatpants, looking almost like a child lost in the fabric. She still didn't tell him her name. True to his word, Lucas spread a blanket on the floor and gave her the bed. As he lay there that night, staring at the ceiling, he wondered what had brought her to that bench. But he didn't ask. Not yet. Morning brought sunlight, the storm having finally passed. The girl was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "My name is Ava," she said quietly. "Thank you. For last night." Lucas nodded. "No problem. You want breakfast?" She smiled faintly. It was the first time he saw her smile. Over pancakes and eggs, Ava began to open up. She had aged out of foster care a few months ago. The family she had been with wasn't kind. When she left, there was nowhere to go. She had tried shelters, couch surfing with friends, even taking odd jobs, but nothing lasted. Eventually, she ended up on the street. "I was invisible," she said softly. "People walked by like I didn't exist. Until you." Lucas didn't know what to say. So he just listened. That day turned into 2. Then a week. Lucas insisted she stay until she figured things out. Ava, though hesitant at first, began to find comfort in the small routines. Making breakfast, cleaning, applying for jobs online using Lucas's laptop. One evening, Lucas came home to find dinner on the table and Ava humming softly to a song playing on the radio. For the first time, she looked like she belonged somewhere. She even decorated the place with paper flowers and little notes on the fridge with quotes like, "Today is hard, but tomorrow is yours." "I got a job," she beamed. "It's at a bookstore not far from here." Lucas smiled back, genuinely happy for her. "That's amazing." But just when things started to look up, the unexpected twist came. Lucas received a notice that his building was being sold. Tenants had 30 days to vacate. Panic set in. He had no backup plan, no savings large enough to cover New York rent alone. Ava noticed his silence that night. "What happened?" she asked. He told her. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something he didn't expect. "Let me help." "Ava, no. You just started working. You need that money. And you gave me a place to sleep when I had nothing. Let me do this. For us. Us." Lucas looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something had changed. She was no longer just a girl who needed help. She had become a part of his life, his quiet world. Pooling their savings, they found a small studio apartment in a quieter part of Brooklyn. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. They painted the walls together, bought second-hand furniture, and made a home from scratch. The bookshelf Ava worked at donated old novels, and Lucas's co-workers gifted them plants and dishes. Neighbors welcomed them with smiles and warm casseroles. Months passed. Ava was promoted at the bookstore. Lucas got a new job managing a non-profit cafe that provided free meals to the homeless. Inspired by Ava, he had pitched the idea himself. Their lives slowly settled into a rhythm, grounded in the trust and compassion that had started it all. On weekends, they volunteered at shelters. On weekdays, they built a life. One evening, after dinner, Ava sat beside Lucas on their worn-out couch. "You never asked why I was on that bench that night." Lucas looked at her gently. "I figured you'd tell me when you were ready." She nodded, then whispered, "Because I had given up. That night, I was going to sleep there and not wake up. I had nothing left in me. But then you came. You didn't ask questions. You just gave." Lucas felt his throat tighten. He remembered a time in college when he, too, had lost everything, his parents in a car crash, his scholarship revoked because of missed exams. A stranger had paid for his hostel for a month and helped him get back on his feet. That act had shaped his entire view of humanity. "You gave me a reason to believe people still care. That there is still kindness in the world." He didn't say anything. He just held her hand. A year later, they stood outside a shelter they now volunteered at together every weekend. Ava, once the invisible girl on the bench, now spoke to others with a strength that inspired. Sometimes, she would say to the young girls with the same broken gaze she once wore, "A single act of kindness can change everything." Lucas would serve coffee while Ava read bedtime stories to children whose parents couldn't afford them books. The world was still harsh, but in their little corner, they made it warmer. And she was right. Because Lucas gave her his bed that night and slept on the floor, a life was saved, and two hearts found a home.